He sold stars on the internet. The truth showed up and burned the whole town down. The fake review. Duluth looked more honest in winter than in summer. Snow covered the potholes, the hairline cracks in facades, the flaking signage. That white sheet faked cleanliness as if the town had never known debt or empty barrooms. Everyone local knew it was a mask. Under the snow, the same beams rotted, and behind the polite baristas' smiles lived the same small-town boredom. Most mornings, a plow with the proud name Stella crawled down Main. It left combs of salt that settled into odd patterns shaped like stars. Kids laughed and pointed at the Star Road, and the grown-ups muttered those were the only stars the town deserved. Anthony understood that better than most. His restaurant sat on the corner across from the pharmacy where retirees gathered at dusk. The place only looked decent at twilight when neon hid the stains on the tablecloths. Daylight told the truth. Sun-bleached walls, tired carpet, servers who'd stopped believing in tips. Old man Harvey came in a lot, local crank, kind of lovable. He never touched the internet but called himself the town's chief critic. On the backs of checks, he wrote poetic reviews full of misspellings. This soup is tasty as the March ice break, but with fish. Sometimes he left those notes for the servers, and they slid them into the laugh drawer. The joke was that those clumsy scribbles were more honest than all the reviews Anthony would write later. One day, the busboy showed up with a pack of glow-in-the-dark star stickers and plastered them on the front window. For the mood, he said. At night, they glowed a pale green, giving the place the vibe of a kid's bedroom. People chuckled, but no one argued. It looked better than the peeling paint. The next morning at the coffee shop, the barista smirked. Your star's the real kind, or more like artificial sweetener. He pretended not to hear. That night he opened his laptop and wrote his first fake review. 5 stars, signed Sarah L. Stumbled on the place and were blown away, it said. On the screen, his first digital stars shone, just as artificial as the stickers on his window and the salt trails Stella left on the road. The illusion started working, and for a minute Anthony felt the world get a little brighter, even if it was a lie. Anthony got hooked fast, almost without noticing. One account, then a second. At night, when the dining room emptied, he'd stay on the line, drink bad coffee, and dream up new names. Linda H., Gregory S., Traveler 89. Each name became a character, each review a tiny play. He wrote like he was telling stories. One account gushed, steak like bare heaven melts in your mouth like ice breaking up on Lake Superior. Another swore, the sauce is so thick the spoon stands straight up tested. A third mentioned tea that smells like Christmas if Christmas happened in July. The stranger the detail, the more alive the reviews felt. Within a month, his rating nearly doubled. People started booking ahead. Evenings filled with noise, laughter, clinking glasses, whether talk. From behind the bar, Anthony watched newcomers hold their phones, show each other his stars. They weren't here for food, they were here for a promise words had sold them. The servers joined the bit. One printed the funniest 5s on napkins and handed them out as certificates of quality. People howled and took the napkins home. Another suggested a wall of honor with the most ridiculous blurbs. Look, someone says our soup smells like gasoline, but in a good way, and the room cracked up. That's when an eccentric showed up, an inspector from a local foundation in charge of the cheese ratio. He brought a scale, set nachos on it, and strictly weighed the cheese in grams. 7% over compliance, he reported and scribbled in a notebook. It was so absurd the staff had to swallow their laughter. Anthony smiled too, but felt a pinch. Any inspection was a reminder his game could be exposed. He calmed himself, everybody does it. One guy flatters himself, another buys likes, a third pumps views. What's the harm in adding a couple stars? No one gets hurt. If anything, people find the place and have a nice night. But diners noticed the food was ordinary, portions modest, service worn out. They didn't get the rapture the reviews promised. Real comments appeared, expected more, fine, but not 5 stars. Anthony flooded them under with a new wave of praise. And then a post from Sarah L. popped up again. The phrasing sounded different, too neat, not his voice. Anthony froze. He hadn't written this one. For the first time, he wondered if someone else was playing his game too. At first, the competition stayed quiet. They were used to Anthony's place sitting in the shade. It didn't bother anyone, low-key, forgettable, a few scattered customers. But when, come January, his rating jumped and tables booked out weeks ahead, everyone noticed. In Duluth, rumors travel faster than wind off the lake. Down at the harbor bar they argued. Anthony, guy had empty rooms for years. Where'd all that raving come from? At the bakery, women counted reviews and shook their heads. Looks like juicing. North Shore Grill swung first. Under a woman's name came a wounded post. I'm allergic to pepper. In the soup even the air felt spicy. Had to eat ice from my glass. Next day another account wrote, server sneezed into my pasta. Now I'm afraid of gluten and I wasn't before. Those PR melodramas were ridiculous, but there were a lot of them and they got lost in the flow. Reply threads turned into snide little duels. Someone wrote, if you were eating ice, that's not Anthony's kitchen anymore, that's your imagination. Another added, your imagination's oversalted too. People laughed, but the rating slid. Meanwhile, a high school tech kid from the next neighborhood decided to help the rivals. He set up a bot farm in the municipal library, sat at an old desktop, ran scripts, and cranked posts from dozens of accounts. The security camera caught him right under a banner for Digital Ethics Week. The whole town saw the clip, and instead of outrage, folks joked, at least he's practicing on theme. The offline clash came at the ice fishing festival. Restaurant reps argued over whose borrowed stars were whose. Someone slipped on the ice, another dropped a rod down the hole. The crowd thought it was part of the show and applauded. It ended in laughter, but everyone knew the war was real. Anthony sat up nights reading the barbs and felt anger climb. He tried to answer politely, thanks for the feedback, we'll take that on board. For each reply, 10 new digs arrived, nastier and weirder. Then the unexpected. Another review from Sarah L. appeared. The tone was different, steady, with natural details about a cozy evening by the fireplace. Anthony froze. He hadn't written it. He checked the profile. It was a real tourist who'd eaten there a year ago. The name overlap turned out to be legit, and now his invented customer had come to life. First sign the game wasn't his anymore. Anthony barely slept. By day he smiled at guests, pretending all was fine. By night he raised an army. The laptop bloomed with windows, each a new name, Emily T., Brian K., Foodie for Life, Traveler MN. He invented backstories, stole photos, spun little lives. Soon the army started living on its own. His profiles began arguing with each other. One bot raved, best steak in Minnesota. Another, also his, snapped back, come on, sounds like you're trying too hard. Anthony watched himself scold himself like rehearsing a breakdown. He knew he was pulling every string, but it felt like sitting in a choir where every voice sang a different note. The glitch came quick. One fresh account auto-pulled a picture from an old stash. The avatar turned out to be a real local accountant named Larry. Next day Larry walked in, slapped a paper on the bar and said, "Explain why I'm suddenly your regular with a passion for pasta when I live on canned tuna." He filed a complaint. Anthony understood. The net had split. The busboy kept his own gag going. At night he brought more glow stars and stuck them to the sign. So the rating at least grows out on the street, he said. Passers-by laughed at the window smothered in phosphorescent symbols. For Anthony it stung, a perfect mirror of his fiction. Inside, the staff whispered, bosses arguing with himself on the internet. One even suggested printing a bot-to-bot thread and pinning it in the kitchen like a bulletin. The laughter had a tremor in it, and Anthony heard it. He told himself he still had it. Spin up 20 more profiles, drown the rivals' slander, steady the ship. Reality got slipperier. Then came the one that knocked his legs out. That same Sarah L., the real tourist, had a husband. He was a fraud auditor for an insurance company. He was in Duluth on a case. Anthony learned it by accident, a short item about county audits. The glow stars shone, the bots bickered, and somewhere nearby a man who lived on anomalies was already looking at review stats. The army of shadows wasn't a shield, it was evidence. The first warning landed dry as a receipt. A notice popped up, see Section 4.3.1 Non-Natural Clusters in Sauce Semantics. Signed, Jenna Harris, Platform Auditor. Anthony read it 3 times and understood one thing: they had him by the tail. Jenna was meticulous to a fault. Every sentence in her report sounded like minutes from a meeting. Per Section 5.2.7, repeated mention of Bear Heaven steak constitutes a statistical spike. She could parse a text down to the commas. The irony was the system was talking to him in the language of a manual. Then chaos elbowed in. Some rival complaints had gone out over the city hall's free Wi-Fi. The algorithm flagged the IP overlap and spat out a warrant. That evening, 2 cops walked into Anthony's place asking to see the bread loaf router. He explained for a long time he had a normal modem. The report still said, suspicion unresolved. By day you might see Jenna at City Hall, by night in a church hall running bingo and GDPR. Deadpan into the mic, attention, G45 data retention, 3 years. People clapped, grandmas giggled. That's where one of them said, my grandson's always at the library writing some kind of reviews. Jenna stiffened. The details matched her case. Meanwhile, the takedowns kept coming. The algorithm stopped caring who was who. Anything from suspicious IPs went into the filter. The twist was it didn't just hit Anthony. North Shore Grill got tagged, the corner pizza joint, even the garage cafe. By evening, the whole restaurant row was erased from search. Phone lines lit up, we're gone. The paper ran, algorithm wipes out Duluth dining. On the street, folks talked about it louder than hockey. Anthony's room went silent. He sat behind the bar and listened to the fridge hum louder than voices. His lie buried more than his place. His neighbors went under with him. He wasn't just a cheat anymore, he was the emblem of a district's failure. The algorithm put a period on it. Jenna added, dry as dust, see Section 6.1 correlation absurd yet consistent. Every day the room got quieter. Where glasses had chimed and guests had laughed, you could now hear only the kitchen cooler drone. Servers sat idle, doom-scrolling, staring at empty tables. They staged the funeral of the stars, printed 5-star pages and pinned them to a board like headstones. One server stood up front and read a eulogy stitched from review cliches. The service was delightful, the ambience cozy, and the dishes exceeded expectations. Laughter shook because everyone knew this was the end. On that wave of farce, the cheese ratio inspector returned. He eyed the new menu where Anthony had stripped the copy down to bare facts. Soup, steak, potato, he said, stone serious. Violation, excess honesty, no emotional payload, fine. Nobody bothered to argue. Outside, Stella plowed past again. Salt stars streaked the street and the spring sun melted them fast. The stars faded at the threshold. Inside, the glow stickers the busboy had once slapped up peeled and went dark. The illusion fell off in plain sight. The town didn't sit still. Owners wiped out by the filters filed a joint complaint against the platforms and the rivals. Papers called it a fight for fairness. Court took a few weeks. The award was symbolic, $1. People laughed bitterly. No one believed trust was coming back. Anthony sat at the bar listening to staff whisper about new jobs. One said, "Better the truck stop grill than this mausoleum." Another stripped the headstone napkins and dumped them. The block looked the same as before, gray walls, weak lamps whined off the lake, but on its map a tag now hung, the fake stars district. Nobody wanted to stop there. The collapse didn't happen when he locked the door. It happened when trust disappeared. With it went the point of all those stars, real, stuck on, and digital. Spring brought changes. Anthony didn't own the restaurant anymore. The space flipped fast into a digital hygiene club. Evenings, teachers, students, and a couple activists gathered with laptops. A new poster on the wall shouted, "Rating not equal to reality." People smiled at the slogan and said it was a fitting place for safety talks. Only small relics remained. The busboy, the one who'd pasted glow stars on the glass, sold the leftovers at the market. He bagged them up as good luck souvenirs. Buyers laughed. They glow right up until the first review. Some grabbed a handful for friends. Anthony didn't show. Some said he'd gone to relatives in the next state. Others whispered he was hiding in plain sight, avoiding the chatter. Duluth had plenty to talk about anyway. People went back to hockey, taxes, spring floods. Once in a while someone said, "Remember that place, the one that bragged about stars?" Evenings on the streets looked the same, gray houses, wet asphalt, a few passers-by, but folks had stopped reading signs. Everybody knew what a facade could hide. Up above, the real stars were out, clear, indifferent, genuine. Old man Harvey sat on the bench by the pharmacy, lifted his head, and said to the fellow beside him, "At least you can't buy those." For the first time in a long while, there was something in his voice no review had: honesty.